Droids. Why do they have to be droids? Hello Rebels fans, and welcome back to the Rebels Recap right here on Positively Nerdy. During the run of Star Wars The Clone Wars, there were more than a few episodes that focused on droids. We had the droid spa, we had Colonel Gascon for 4 whole episodes with his squadron of droids, and usually with the Clone Wars, too many droids wasn't a good thing. But I have to say I was pleasantly surprised with the most recent episode of Star Wars Rebels. Yes, there were a lot of droids, but they didn't take over the story, they enhanced it. I'll try to make a long story short. Droids in Distress is basically the crew of the Ghost. Our rebels need credits to be able to be rebels, to put food on the table, to have bombs for Sabine to blow up, all that kind of stuff. You need credits if you want to do that. So they end up taking another job for Vizago. Vizago, in this episode especially, and I kind of got the hint a little bit last episode, but I kind of wanted to wait and see. I had no idea we'd be seeing this character again so quickly. Really reminds me of Hondo Ohnaka from Star Wars The Clone Wars. Almost to the point where I wish it was Hondo Ohnaka. He was one of those great characters that was developed through the run of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and we didn't get to see his endgame. We don't know what happened to him. He could still be out somewhere in that galaxy far, far away, wreaking all kinds of charming havoc, because I loved that character. Vizago, he's not there yet, and he might be a welcome as addition as Hondo ended up becoming, but I had a little bit of pangs of missing Hondo Ohnaka in this episode. So, since they go to Vizago and they need the credits, the whole thing kind of plays out like a big heist movie. They have to run a con, and there's an arms deal that of course goes south thanks to the Imperials, and it's actually kind of a lot of fun. Speaking of the con, the mission actually begins with them taking public transport so they can eavesdrop on a conversation between another arms dealer and an Imperial. And here is where they meet C-3PO and R2-D2, who we don't know at the time are also undercover spying on the Imperials for the same arms deal. On top of C-3PO and R2, if that wasn't enough, we get a third droid in this scene. Well, I guess fourth if you want to count Chopper. He'd be 1, R2, 3PO. Rex. Yes, Rex, the captain from the original Star Tours attraction, and he's still kind of hidden in the new Star Tours attraction, but the captain of the original Star Tours attraction makes a cameo appearance in this as the pilot of the public transport, just like he was in Star Tours. It's incredibly awesome, and just to make sure it's really awesome, Paul Reubens even came back to do the voice. Getting back to R2 and 3PO, who are kind of the stars of the show. They're like the guest star of the show, like in the old Batman show when they used to have guest stars come in. That's kind of how C-3PO and R2-D2 are here. They have some great interaction with our brand new cast of characters, especially Chopper. Obviously, seeing Chopper and R2 go at it was hysterical. I loved every second of it. And I really like, too, how the C-3PO and R2-D2 kind of weave their way in and out of the story. They kind of came and they went, and then they came back and then they went. It really reminded me of the original trilogy. And really, what's Star Wars without R2 and 3PO? As for the crew of the Ghost, this time around, Zeb and Ezra get to take center stage. Once again, Hera gets the short straw. Ezra really wants to begin his Jedi training, and who could blame him? Unfortunately, Kanan, and I kept saying Kanan last time, I know I did. Kanan is keeping him at arm's length and kind of holding this Jedi training out there as like this carrot at the end of a stick to kind of drag Ezra along. But why did you bring him on if you're not going to Jedi train him? Because you obviously saw he's Force sensitive and he's got those abilities. But no, Kanan just wants him to crawl through more air ducts, because that's pretty much all Ezra does to this point. As for Zeb, we get some really interesting insights to his backstory, at least in broad strokes. And his past comes back to haunt him in a very real and dramatic way as Agent Kallus makes his return, and it turns out Kallus and Zeb, not as random as we might have thought. We learn that Zeb's species are all but extinct, and Kallus is actually the Imperial agent in charge of the genocide of Zeb's home world. And it gets brought up more than once, and the weapons that they're transporting were used in the massacre and the genocide, really, of all of Zeb's people. And again, Kallus led that charge. And now Kallus comes back, and again, I cannot get enough of this guy. Who doesn't love a good bad guy? Who doesn't love a good Star Wars bad guy? Kallus, for being just a guy and not a Darth Vader and not an Emperor and not a Jabba the Hutt, he's really winning me over here in an hour and a half worth of Star Wars Rebels. But he kind of comes back with the weapon of Zeb's people and challenges Zeb to a fight with that weapon, really rubbing his face in it, taunting him the entire time, really holding his own against Zeb, which I found to be, I should have found it to be ridiculous, but it was awesome, because this is a guy, Zeb, who's throwing around stormtroopers, literally, but Kallus is able to hold his own. he's actually able to do a little bit more than just hold his own, and it's only because of Ezra's inadvertent use of the Force that Zeb survives. And when Kanan sees Ezra use the Force in such a powerful and dramatic way, if you haven't seen the episode, one, why are you watching? Stop, go watch the episode. I've already ruined everything. And more importantly, think of Harry Potter and the way he would inadvertently use his magic when he got upset or scared or anything like that. That's kind of what happens to Ezra. He feels so strongly for Zeb already at this point, even though there was a great line earlier with he and Sabine where they kind of gave Ezra a hard time, but it was hilarious. They've obviously formed a bond at this point, and that bond actually saves Zeb's life. And when Kanan sees Ezra use that power, he lets him know that your Jedi training will start tomorrow. Finally, although I'm very curious to see what Kanan's version of Jedi training is, to this point, and especially in this episode, he's not very Jedi-like. He's more than willing to sell very, very dangerous weapons to very, very dangerous people. He justifies it by saying that they're out of the hands of the Empire, but putting them in the hands of Vizago might not be all that much better. I get a feeling that Kanan is kind of an ends justify the means type of guy, and that he and Qui-Gon would have gotten along really, really well. In case you missed it, they just announced a brand new comic series that doesn't start until April, but it is going to feature Kanan, so maybe we'll get some insights onto how he came up as a Jedi, where he was in his Jedi development, if he was early on, and it is called The Last Padawan, so if he was early on in his Jedi development, maybe he's kind of had to learn the hard way and didn't get the full Jedi training, and that would be why he's kind of that shade of gray that he is. And in the final scene of the episode, Kanan delivers R2 and 3PO, remember how I mentioned they weave back and forth, to Senator Bail Organa. The scene with Kanan and Bail is terrific. Bail's dropping all sorts of double talk on Kanan, very clearly in the know about what's going on, maybe even who Kanan is, but it's all done very, very subtle. Kanan kind of picks up on it, but not really, and Bail kind of dismisses him right before he can really clue in on it, and we get a great reminder, because remember at the end of episode 3, Senator Organa chose to have C-3PO's mind wiped, but not R2's. So he very much confides in R2 at this point about these rebels, and R2 was recording everything, so the seeds are really being planted for what might happen toward the end of this series. So unfortunately for you hardcore EU fans, all of the continuity you knew in regards of starting the rebellion has kind of been swept away. No more Force Unleashed explanation. This series is, at least from this scene, looks like it's really going to be the formation of the rebellion. Pure and simple. And I love Bail being used in this way. I love everything about the scene and the way he talks and what he lets on, but what he chooses not to let on all at the same time. I thought it was terrific. So in what could have been another disastrous droid-filled episode, Droids in Distress was actually a lot of fun. It builds on all the momentum of the premiere and really sets the stage for not only what's going to happen in the immediate future, but further down the line in that formation of the rebellion that I really think we're going to see. As Star Wars always does, Droids in Distress delivers a fun, exciting episode for kids or maybe casual fans, while also delivering a lot of Easter eggs and things kind of just below the surface for the more hardcore fans. Star Wars is at its best when it does things like this, and Droids in Distress, surprisingly, is a great example of that. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Rebels and my review of it. You can let me know what you thought of the review and the episode in the comments below. And don't forget to check out the rest of Positively Nerdy, including podcasts and videos and written reviews, all sorts of stuff over at positivelynerdy.com. And until next time, Rebels, celebrate your fandom.